Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by Carter Russell. I was guided to Carter Russell's work through a mutual friend of ours, Rani Green. She was on my last podcast with the Roundtable. She was on the one before that as well with her story. So I sort of asked her off air, are there any young males or young people doing the work I'm doing? And she said, you should get a hold of Carter. So I sent him a quick little email. Then he replied, went to my junk box. So I didn't really speak to him for a couple of days. And I just messaged him on Insta and had a bit of a phone call. And we've made this happen today. Carter's doing the same sort of stuff I am, helping a lot of young males out there to overcome their porn addictions and speaking out about the effects of porn and how bad it is and the sort of content that I'm putting out there. So Carter's only 20 years old, though. So Carter's ahead of time here. There's not many 20-year-olds that are willing to do this work. So he's an inspiration. He has an awesome story, which I haven't heard yet. I want to hear it live, just like you guys. I'm looking forward to talking to Carter about all things porn, his story, himself, and yeah, just hopefully get this message out there to more and more young males, more and more young people that there's a better way and there is a way out from the habits that they're in, especially the porn stuff. So Carter, welcome to my show today, brother. I'm looking forward to this. Been looking forward to it since last Thursday. So let's rock and roll, mate. Let's get your story out there.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate the intro.
No worries, mate.
Yeah, my story. Well, I think this probably starts back when I was either 11 or 12, just probably in primary school still, year 6 going into year 7. I was out at dessert with my sister and my mother, and I asked my sister why the Kardashians are so famous. And she told me that they made one of them had a leaked sex tape and blah, blah, blah. And so then my mind went leaked sex tape. And that night I came home and had a look at this leaked sex tape. And
holy shit.
boom, there goes all the happy chemicals. There goes all my dopamine levels, my curiosity, everything. And for about another, if I was 12, I stopped watching it. It was about 17. So about another 5-6 years, I watched porn every day. Most of the time, it'd probably be 3 times a day. And I did not think had a problem. I did not think I was addicted. I didn't think that this was anything bad. Everyone I knew did it. And so there's no guilt or shame I didn't feel great about it, obviously. Like, as soon as you ejaculate, you're like, oh, that's disgusting, and you throw it away. But I didn't feel any, like, at the time, I didn't feel any negative feelings towards it, which was interesting because a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, it's not like I'm addicted to porn. I just enjoy watching it. And I would argue that you're not addicted until you decide you want to stop, right?
Mm.
So I watched it throughout my whole school years. And then I left school in year 10 to start my own business. And I would find that I'd actually watch a lot of porn too when I'm like trying to get the creative juices flowing and they weren't flowing. So I think that was like my output. Like, it's just ruining creativity, really, because that's your creative life force. It creates another baby. So that was impacting my creativity through my business. Then I met a friend at the cafe. I actually met him at this cafe, and I think it was probably the second time he met me. He just came up to me and said, "You watch porn, don't you?" And I was like, "Excuse me, who are you?" And that's none of your business. And he really liked my business, the clothes that I was selling. So he was like, "You should try and go 3 days without porn and masturbation. And if you fail, I get one of those hats." And I was like, "Righto, I'll show you I'm not addicted. I'll show you this isn't an issue." And sure enough, come day 2, like, I'd been 24 hours and I was like shaking, thinking about it, sexually horny, I guess you'd say, just overly horny. And anyway, I managed to get through the 3 days and phew, that was done and went back to my ways. For probably another few months, really. And he talked to me a little bit more about why he stopped and how that was the best thing he'd ever done for himself. And he'd come off benzone withdrawals and like drugs, steroids. He'd come off a lot of things. He'd had a rough past. And porn was the best thing that he did for himself, he thought. So yeah, I continued talking to him about it. And then when I saw another Instagram post from someone else who was a bit of a role model mentor to me, I was like, right. And then I got a bit angry, which I think was necessary. I got like a bit like, I've been dubbed here. Like my whole prepubescent and pubescent stage has been me jerking off to different women over the internet, affecting my energy, affecting the way I view girls, affecting my relationships, affecting myself, affecting my career, like affecting my whole life, socializing. So I got angry, and I think that's a little bit of a necessary stage. Like, you need to get angry. Like, look at what this has done to you. Look at what this is doing to you. Once you realize that, and then I was like so angry that I was like, I'm never going back to those main porn sites ever again. And I think the power of that circumstance actually worked, because I have never been back to those porn sites for 2 years. I did have different forms of relapse though. So I believed my validating belief. So my belief that told me it's okay to watch porn when I didn't want to was that OnlyFans wasn't considered porn. So that was a crock of shit. But I continued to watch OnlyFans for probably another 6 months. And my little brother, he just got a girlfriend and also removed porn, was kind of like to me, Carter, I think that's still classified as watching porn. And I was like, nah, it's not, because, it's just different women and blah, 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 blah. I validated it. So I struggled with that for some time. Even to the point, like, I'd never pay for porn previously, but I'd paid like $12 for a monthly subscription to someone. And then I'd go, no, this isn't right, and delete my account. And then the next day I'd pay the same subscription. So like, this is how much I was working against myself. I was double paying to see this. And this would be my relapse stage for sure, which I learned a lot from. From there, I was seeing a Reiki teacher who's been such a great mentor in my life. We do a bit of like therapy before, and then she clears it in a Reiki session. And she was talking to me. I was expressing the desire for me to have a long-term partner in my relationship, in my life. And she was saying that in order to make way for the new, you need to clear the old. She was actually kind of referring to different partners I had and hadn't really cut the cord. And, but I took that to my porn use as well. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm consumed in this porn, then does that mean there's room for someone else to come into my life? Does that mean I have the energy, the magnetic element to it? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna stop watching OnlyFans, and I'm gonna meet my girlfriend. Like, I set that goal. 10 days later, I walked into my cafe for work, and as I walked in the door, I was like magnetized to this woman. And I served her, and then I made her smoothie, and she was sitting outside reading a book. And I was like, I've got to ask this girl what her name is. I've got to just start up some sort of conversation with her. And I was quivering in my boots. Like, this was scary as hell. Like, that's the thing. I think a lot of people think that, porn's supposed to give you this. I mean, quitting porn's supposed to give you this superpower where you just approach any woman. I was still shit scared, but not watching porn made the outcome more significant. So therefore I was able to push through that fear.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Porn didn't get rid of my fear of approaching girls. It allowed me to push through it. So yeah, I ended up walking over to her and asked her what book she was reading, and she gave me the book. And I remember when I was holding the book, I was like, and yeah, by day 30, we'd had 3 dates together, and it had become an intimate relationship.
That's incredible.
That was, and then I kind of realized the power of porn, the power of quitting porn. Sorry, and that relationship actually didn't last much longer. Different wounding got in the way. And I had a lot of work still to work on with my attachment issues to women. But my story continues a little bit too, so I'll keep going.
Right.
So even though that sounds like a nice punchline, unfortunately, reality hit, and we didn't continue for much longer. But that experience allowed me to understand so many different things, like the power of removing the old to create room for the new, the ability to like create something and create a woman in my life, and the ability of being able to push through fear, and the ability of like seeing how much porn impacted me. So that taught me a lot. And I continued. I never went back to OnlyFans ever again. Even though we broke up, I used the desire to watch porn as a desire to find women and find a family unit, foster that. So, which also meant becoming my best self, getting fit and working out, not so I have more muscles and can get more sex, but because I want to be a healthy, high value man for my future children. Eating healthy, developing myself, creating finances so that I can support a woman and a family. Like this whole, I just wanted to become my best self. Then I had a massive crush on this girl that I worked with. She's 7 years older than me. And so, well, I wouldn't say massive crush. We started out as friends, and then one night it was like, whoa, just all came over me, and I was just like, she was my woman. Like in this moment, I was like, wow. And I asked her if she wanted to go for a bushwalk, and she's like, yeah, cool, that'd be fun. And then I asked her if I pretty much confessed my feelings and asked what she was thinking, and she was blindsided. Like she didn't see this coming at all. She thought I was just asking her to go on a walk as a friend. So I got knocked back that day.
Another lesson for you.
Yeah, another lesson for me. And then I continued on just showing up for her. Like I was being her friend. We worked together. We were still connecting a lot. And I just was like abstinent. I'm like, I'm not having sex until it's with someone that I love, or this woman at this case. So I was absent from sex, absent from porn, and I would masturbate probably once a month, if that, and that would be a very embodied practice. And then I, like 2 months went on, and I was like, maybe that was a sign. So I'd ask her out again, get knocked back. Maybe that was a sign, ask her out again, get knocked back. Like I asked this woman out 4 times, and all of them were a no. It got to the point where she's like, Carter, I know you want to take me out for dinner, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, just like, let's just go as friends. Just let me buy you a meal. Like it was really, she knew, but I think she's got quite a feminine essence, and I think she wanted to know that I was there. I'm not just trying to have sex with her one night and then leave. She wanted to know that I'm here and committed, and I think that can take time, and that's okay. So yeah, so then eventually, then I was like, well, I'm gonna do. I think I need a full reboot on my system. I've done 30 days, but I want to go like 90 days. So I was like, okay, I'm going 90 days without masturbating. And things with me and her were naturally developing too. And I think it was on day 80, I ended up being intimate with her. And now she's been my partner for the last 6 months as well.
Wow.
So, and I've known her for about a year and a bit too.
Is that the 27-year-old you were talking about? Is that
Yeah.
your partner?
Yeah.
Holy, it's like she was like showing you need to be. Yeah, that's so powerful, bro. She literally was showing you how to be the best version of yourself.
That's exactly right. Nothing will make you want to do that more than a woman.
Yep. That's incredible.
The hero of a woman,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really, really awesome story. I don't know where to go to ask you questions on that one, mate. But I guess you spoke about you didn't really have, or you might have had a relapse or something. What was that relapse for you? Because I know a lot of men. For me too, like I would quit, but then I'd go back.
Mm-hmm.
What was your go back? Was it
so my relapse was the OnlyFans?
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yep. So then I would pay for subscriptions and end up masturbating over porn. Really, it's like just paid porn. So, but my mind was so twisted, and that's the thing. It's important to remember that your brain wants these chemicals that porn's produced, so it does things to trick you into watching porn, and that's why we have different unconscious beliefs like, oh, it's not really that bad, OnlyFans isn't porn. Like, how ludicrous is that? OnlyFans is definitely porn. Like, I don't care if you're not seeing some girl in an orgy or some girl actually maybe having sex. If there's penises and like, it's porn, So I'm still getting the same stimulation. And in fact, because there was like so much anticipation with buying the subscription, unlocking the videos, it's actually my dopamine levels were more high than they were when I was just watching normal porn.
That would have been.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful story, man. Like, yeah, as for a 20-year-old to like embody his full self and to set out a 90-day semen retention journey, basically. That's what this practice is called. I don't know whether you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And then to get to day 80, and you've been like pushing it, get to day 80. It's like she's like, you've become who I Yeah, it was just that's so powerful, man.
It is, yeah. I
Like
think
you literally became that man that you wanted to be when you set that intention. You became that man for that woman. That is unbelievable.
yeah, for sure. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, even now, like being in a relationship with her and the idea that she's 27, so she, if we're gonna have kids, probably next few years, like it's well, well, I need to get my shit together. Like I'm training jujitsu, I'm training weights, I'm trying to build my career, I'm trying to step up so that my kids have a good father, and no matter how far away that is, like it's. Whereas before, when I don't have this woman, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'll just do my own thing, I'll improve myself. But I don't know. I think I thrive on that kind of pressure and the reason, and having a reason to build myself.
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
So, so obviously the first few days where you like had that deal with that guy, like what was that process like for you? We'll just go back to when that guy came in and said, "Oh, I'm going to challenge you to a 3-day no porn," because I know some guys that will watch this will probably try and do that as well. What was that experience like for you in terms of that day two?
Yeah.
Like you said, you were shaking and stuff. Let's delve into that a bit.
Yeah, it was fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people understand. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can stop watching porn whenever I want. Like you can, you definitely can stop watching whenever you want. But to think it's going to be easy is a bit naive.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy. I think I've heard it argued before that it's actually I've never had substance abuse, so I must say that I can't really speak on this, but I've heard from other people who have had both. They've found that coming off porn is actually more difficult than coming off drugs because the chemicals that you receive from the porn are inside of you, so they can be stimulated at any time. And we know what happens to an alcoholic when they have one sip of alcohol. So what happens to a porn addict when they have one sip of the alcohol equivalent to their chemicals that go in their brain, is they end up in a relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So although there's no needle or substance outside of you, it's in you. It's in your brain. So I mean, I've even practiced this. I saw a street sign actually, and it was the same name as the porn star I used to watch, and I forgot about her, and I was like, whoa. Oh, that's right. I remembered her. And then I started thinking about her scenes. And I remember thinking about, and I just like this flood came in me. And I was like, okay, because of the work I do, I want to feel what my clients are going through. So I was like, okay, let's imagine I'm going to go home and watch porn. Like I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch this. I'm going to look up this porn star. Holy shit. The amount of like the rush that came inside of me, the dopamine, the adrenaline, I could feel it. I was so excited and captivated by that idea. And that's all just through imagineering, like imagery process, visualization. That's not even with substance.
Yep, I know. I've gone back and done the exact same thing, man. And when you're consciously aware of how powerful this actually is and what comes up inside you, that excitement, that adrenaline rush, yeah, powerful, man.
No, it's scary how powerful
it is. And I often talk about too, like it's like those conscious things. Like people know that they're all trafficked. People know that they're treated badly. People know all these conscious things. But what I talk about, and what you're talking about too, is like those unconscious draws and those unconscious things that we're drawn to seek safety and comfort in that porn. A lot of men out there and a lot of young boys your age, my age, like they're broken inside, man. And if they're broken inside, well, a good-looking porn star doing those things is enticing for that.
Yeah, it preys on that for sure.
It does.
And just to go back to what you said before, so the first 3 days I just completely winged it. I was like, I'll just avoid it and keep living my normal life. And then when I went to do the 30 days, when I met that first girl, I knew how difficult it was from the 3 days. So I printed out, I created a calendar, and each day had a motivational quote that reminded me why I'm doing this. And it had 2 photos down below of the relationship that I wanted to create. So I'm using this potent energy of an addiction and channeling that into creating the life I want to live. Like, I think that energy, like think of the addiction energy. If you can transmute that and create that into something and use that to create your goals, that is such a powerful force. So that was something I was just very lucky to do. And now if I knew what I do now, I'd set up a whole different program for myself for sure. Yeah.
What was the quote that you had there? What was the daily, like, this is affirmation sort of stuff too. This is the sort of work I
Yeah.
do. What was that quote? Yeah. It
Well, each day was different.
was like an app on your phone, or was it
No,
like it?
I created one and printed it out.
Ah, nice.
And each day had a different one, and I'd cross it off. And then if I'd ever get a temptation, I'd run into my room and look at the sheet, and it was like, what will your future children think of you? And it's like,
Yeah.
cool.
Literally what we spoke about off air, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't you weren't doing it with your future self though. You were doing it with your future kids, and that's even more powerful, bro.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for anyone out there listening, that is a beautiful tip. What would your future children think if I was to go and do this now? And that could not only just be for porn, that could be for anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mate, that is a testament to you at only 20 years old to like just like get it and then do the work to then create. Look what you've created already in how long?
2 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man,
Thank
a
you,
lot of people take like 20, 30 years to do this stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah. I've had some very great mentors as well that I've come across, which is
Yeah, so that's probably on my next question was like,
Yeah.
how important was asking for help?
Mm,
Like, to you, how important was that?
yeah. I couldn't have done this by myself.
Yeah.
Adam. So I've had quite an interesting upbringing where we were very open about a lot of topics. So I've always been talking about sex. As embarrassing as this sounds, the first time I masturbated, I told my mom about it. And
Jeepers.
yeah, I felt weird. I felt gross, and she would kind of validated it and was like we're very open about talking about these things. So I kind of don't have that filter, which is
Yep.
a blessing and a curse, as all things are, polarity. But
Yeah.
I would talk to the Reiki practitioner that I was with, and then I would talk to my friends. And since I left school, I found friends, and they were about 25, 26, 27. And so they were kind of going through this now as well. And I would just talk to them for like hours about it. I'd be like, I mean, all up hours, not hours at the time, but I'd be like, so you only masturbate once every 2 weeks? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, my mind, when I heard that, I was like, how the fuck does that happen? Like, I could not see myself ever doing that. Like, that's insane.
Mm.
I'm like, and so I just talked to him about it, and he'd had his own issues. So then he'd show me how he did it and give me advice. And then I talked to this person, he'd give me advice. And all the while, I'm getting all this stuff off my chest. I'm bringing it into light. It's no longer something that I'm trying to beat dark and dingy in a room. It's like, it's becoming alive when I speak it.
Mm.
But I think definitely communication is key. And if you're in a relationship, I highly, highly, highly recommend you tell your partner and you work with your partner to come off porn. A lot of people are very scared to tell their partners, but I think hiding porn from your partner, it's a pretty red flag. Not even just because of what they will think of it, but what do you think of yourself hiding that from them? Well,
That's
yeah.
a lot of women know too. Like, they just intuitively know
Yes.
when their male's not present.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And they'll know when you're having sex and you're not watching pornography too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they bloody know.
They know.
That's yeah, mate. That it's just unbelievable at 20 years old to just start that journey. It sounds to me like you've surrounded yourself with people that were striving to be better, and you were just like it sounds to me like you were just a sponge, man. You were just like getting all the information, just applying it. That's so powerful in itself that you were able to surround yourself with people that were, a couple of steps ahead of you on your journey, and then you're able to just like suck that knowledge in like a sponge, and then go, right, how can I apply this to me? That's powerful, bro.
That's been the best thing I've done for myself, and just the curiosity to learn. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you surrounded yourself with people that were a bit older than you, because what were your age group doing? The things you were.
Yeah. Still are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think COVID kind of separated me and a little bit, and I was forced to find people I was more aligned with, and
yeah, same.
And that's how I found the older group of people, and we all were such a blessing for each other. We're still friends, but we're not as a close group circle. We'd have like these different potlucks, and I think everyone there had curious minds. Like there's someone there, and she can read about 4 or 5 books a week, and she was one of my mentors as well. Still is. She's a great friend to me, and she has so much knowledge inside of her, and I barely hear her speak. She's always listening, even though she could talk till the cows come home about all the things. I just think it's interesting. Yeah, that point.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that were you the sort of, I'm going to ask you a deep question here. On this podcast, we go pretty deep, man. So I'm just going to ask you a deep question. So were you the sort of, from like 12 to when you recognise it, how old were you when you recognised it? 19, 18, 19?
Yeah, 18, 19, about then.
So what sort of person were you prior to overcoming porn? So were you like shy, not confident? Were you like feeling like in a space that's like you're a bit fearful?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was, firstly, I'll talk about, I was still quite curious about life and quite interested in my own development.
Yep.
But I was quite feminine in nature, I would say, looking back. I had anxious attachments to women, which I think stemmed from some stuff from my childhood. Not massive stuff, but like everyone has their own stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was quite socially anxious. Maybe I would kind of put different masks on depending on where I was. So like when I went into school, before I'd even engage with a group, I'd just watch and listen for about 2 weeks, and then I'd start acting like they are. So I was just morphed into different groups. So I didn't really have like a who am I, So yeah, feminine, socially anxious attachments, like a bit needy towards women, a bit of a fuck boy.
So you've been everything.
Yeah. Like I was still very respectful of women, and all my sexual encounters were very respectful. But I did have stages where it's like, yeah, I was quite okay having a few one night stands. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously you've gone back and dealt with that. So how important was that to then go back to those moments? For me, those moments came up for me when I started my healing journey. Like all those encounters that I had came up. Did any of those flashbacks come up for you and you're like, oh, I see this now? In terms of the way you might have been to those women or the neediness and stuff. Like for me, they just came up and I was like, oh, I know why I was like that. But well, how was that process for you? Because they would have come up.
No, they definitely did. Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you've got to practice a lot of forgiveness to that younger person. Like
powerful.
Yeah. Like just I'm talking in relation to the different types of neediness and anxious attachment. You like look back on that, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Or you read one of the old messages that you sent and you're like, holy gosh.
Brutal.
So yeah, I'd forgive that and then use it as a way to learn. I mean,
yeah. This is my next question too. I want to ask you. So
yeah,
the forgiveness process for me, I wrote letters. So I put it out there. I wrote letters. I even asked the universe to bring me in some women that I treated badly, and the law of attraction, law of whatever, they came back into my life, and I was able to apologize to a few of them.
Wow.
Did something similar like that happen to you? Yeah. So I'll just quickly share this. I was in a supermarket, right? I don't really go to supermarkets much, but I was just getting like just something quick. And one of the women was next to me, like standing right next to me. I'm like, holy shit, like I treated her so bad. And I was like, I have to apologize. I was like, hey, name, I'm not going to say her name.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so sorry for how I treated you all those years ago. I was a young, scared, broken little boy inside, and I didn't know how to love. I treated you so badly. I'm so sorry. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I'm so sorry that I treated you that way. It was like so healing for me, but so healing for her. She's like, thank you. Thank you for saying that. It was just happened. It's happened 3 times since.
Wow. That's great. So great.
Yeah. So I don't know, for you, was that a similar thing? Like, how did you go through that forgiveness process? Not only yourself, but for them too.
Yeah. Interesting question. I think
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your time.
I had to forgive. I wrote a few letters to different people. And then I burnt them as well.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of looked at it maybe my forgiveness towards myself was like, okay, how are we gonna forgiving myself maybe looked like not wasting those lessons and using those lessons, deconstructing those lessons and learning what do I want to do instead.
Yes.
That's how I showed myself forgiveness, because I'm respecting those moments.
Yeah, you're not looking back on them with judgment or anger and resentment
Yeah.
towards them. It's like, well, what's the lesson here? Or yeah, powerful. Because yeah, I was the opposite. I'd go back to those moments and be like, gee, I didn't like that guy the way he did that, or have that anger and resentment towards him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. You're able to just go in there and be like, okay, what's this showing me? What are the lessons here? Yeah. To
Yeah.
then move forward. Because the universe always tests you, doesn't it?
It does. It does for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a powerful story, man. Yeah. So in terms of like, do you ever get, this is a good question actually, just came to me then. Do you ever get, yes, you're in a relationship stuff, but do you ever get just that little flashback, that little porn star might be come back in your head and you go, oh, how do you deal with that coming back up now, looking back? Like, surely you'd still get the little draw to it, there'd still be a draw there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, I'll quit porn when I get a girlfriend.
Mm.
When I got a girlfriend and I'm being very very sexually satisfied with that in that relationship, my desire for porn increased. I don't really know the reason, but I find it quite interesting that a lot of people say, oh, I'll quit porn when I find a girlfriend. This is just my sexual, which doesn't work for two ways, because one, you won't, and two, it's harder to find a girlfriend when you are on porn. So that's why I'd like to remove that sentence straight off the bat. But yeah, so I still get the flashbacks for sure. Even now she's away for 3 weeks, and so I'll practice semen retention that whole time. That's what I like to do, and yeah, the desire pops up, like either on Instagram, maybe a famous podcast that I follow will be interviewing a porn star that I used to watch, and it's like it just triggers you, or there's little triggers, like we always have triggers.
Yeah, we do.
Definitely doesn't go away.
No.
How I deal with that now? Well, I've got 2 years up my sleeve, not looking at it, and I work through it. So there's not even like the option for me to go back there. But if I did, I'd just go through my practices. I do a self Reiki practice. I'll go exercise, pump the blood around my body. I'll kind of just do what I tell my clients to do.
Yeah.
And maybe look
Powerful.
at what am I craving porn for today? Am I feeling lonely at the moment? Am I feeling bored, which is actually overstimulated? Or am I, like kind of get to the bottom of what am I seeking there, and maybe try and find that in a healthy alternative.
That inner dialogue so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah,
just
it is.
You're asking yourself those questions. Why am I being drawn to this?
Yeah.
Instead of just going to it, you just sit and go, hang on, why? Yeah, it's powerful to have that self recognize those emotions. A lot of people your age will just go and do it. They won't even don't even consider the alternative.
For sure.
And for me, I would find with the porn stuff, I would find myself looking through like 2 or 3 hours for the perfect video, and then only lasting 30 seconds with it. It's like, how better else could you use that time too?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Like you're looking for a perfect video. You got 2 hours. It's like you could go for a walk, go work out, you could write a blog, start a podcast, start a business, do all these other things instead of wasting your time on that screen for only 30-second pleasure.
Yeah, it adds up.
It does.
And then there's also the ejaculation hangover after the 30 seconds of pleasure.
Yeah, it depletes you of all your energy. So that's probably the good next topic to this now too. So when you found that you were in your masturbation stage, like I was there too, I would be so, but I didn't recognize it until I stopped. But like, how depleted of your energy and resources after you would do that? Like, were you tired? Were you just like lacking motivation?
Well,
how was it for you?
Yeah, I think because I was doing it for 5 years or so, I thought that's just how I was. Only did I realize my fatigue, tiredness, like less motivation once I stopped, because then I had this massive increase, right? It's going back to normal. It's like I'm not in an ejaculation hangover anymore. I'm going, and then so then when I got to this point of like doing 7 days or 10 days and I felt like on cloud 9, I was like, and then if I released, then I would feel the effects. But for 5 years, I never gave myself a chance to feel the effects. I thought that's just how I was. You know, I was constantly flatlining on an ejaculation hangover, which I
Yeah,
think
yes.
are struggling with. Like they don't they don't feel that porn demotivates them and drains them of their energy because they've never tried the alternate. Do you know what I mean?
Correct. I know exactly what you mean because I've been in that too. Like when I started my porn quit journey. I went the 5 days to 10 day stuff, felt really good, and then I would ejaculate, and it's like then you recognize, like, well, hang on, I can feel good, and I wasn't feeling good before, but I can feel good now. So it's like, oh, this is why I'm not feeling good, and this has been why I haven't been feeling good this whole time. I've been depleting my body of all its vital resources, and for a 20-year-old to recognize that too, that's a credit to you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Because it's literally the same as what I went through too. But I'm a little bit older than you though. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a 20-year-old, yeah. So obviously you had some friends that you were around and hanging out with. Like when you started your journey with this, I would assume, like everyone else, you would have met a whole new group of friends. But how was that process of losing those friends for you?
Yeah. It's interesting. I never really cut the cord with them. It just kind of fizzled out. And yeah, it's been difficult for sure. I think, I miss them and miss hanging out and the fun we had. But yeah, I think, different stages of life call for different stages of people, and that's just where I was meant to go, I think. And yeah, I followed those breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same for me too, man. It was a
Yeah.
really hard process to lose, some of your lifelong friends on the journey though. But
Yeah.
the people I've met along the way, it's been incredible that you do really shed the old to bring in the new, don't you?
You do, yeah, for sure.
And
yeah.
we'll talk about semen retention. So how did you get into the information on how powerful this semen retention stuff is? How'd that come about for you?
I just tried it. Self-discovery, yeah.
Yeah, good.
So I just linked semen retention and porn together.
Yep.
Like I quit the porn and then I had my OnlyFans trouble, and then I was practicing semen retention, learning about it, and I don't know where at this stage currently in my life, I like if I'm with my partner, I ejaculate once, twice, maybe even a few times a week, depending. And I feel like that's okay for me right now because I think I'm learning to become more multi-orgasmic and have sex without ejaculation. I do that sometimes as well. If I feel like I really don't want to release on that day, I'll still have sex, but I'll withhold, and I still feel sexually satisfied. So I think, though, I do want to talk about maybe the fact people can develop an addiction to not releasing their semen, and
Yes.
go both ways. Like there's releasing every day, and then there's becoming monk mode, and people like I think maybe a 30-day, 90-day withholding can be really healthy to reboot your system to get back to how we're designed to be, especially if you're struggling from some sort of sexual dysfunction, such as erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, delayed orgasm, all those ones. A reboot can be really powerful. But then after the reboot, it's about integrating healthy sexuality. It's like, this is such a powerful force. And I think, look at the ancient Chinese medicines, they had a measure for people on how often they should release. I think it was like 20-year-olds should release every 4 days, 30-year-olds should release once every 10 days, and then it goes up from there. But then also just work out what works for you. Like if I'm not doing a semen retention period, so right now I'm doing about a month. I just feel like I want a bit of a reboot. But if I wasn't, I would probably release once every 10 days maybe, or every 2 weeks. And then I'd be channeling the energy and diverting the energy if I wasn't doing that. So right now, if I'm going more than 10 days, then there needs to be some sort of practice that directs and transmutes that energy. Otherwise, it gets so stagnant, so built up that it's just not healthy either. So yeah, also learning to bring it up to the higher parts of the body and then directing it to your goals as well. So if you're getting urges for sex, like maybe divert the thought process from sex to your goals, use it. Yeah, a long answer short.
No, it's powerful, bro, because it's a topic that is heavily censored, heavily suppressed for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful to have a 20-year-old talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I've only learned about it in the last 12 months myself, and I have been practicing too.
Yeah,
But when I started practicing, I would actually use porn to release. So I had to delve into that stuff. And now the releases it's a different kind of release though, if you're not having that porn with you.
absolutely. It's more
I know
involved.
I'm currently single, so I don't have to practice on the female. So I'm using myself as my own sort of test dummy, really.
Yeah,
But
I do the same. I think that's important.
it is.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
especially that release too, because if you're not releasing with porn, then you're actually naturally releasing then too. Like, I don't know, I could be deep in meditation. Like I sometimes don't know where I go, but then I release, and it's like it was a lot more of I guess you could say a healthy release in terms of the way I was releasing, or the way we were both releasing was through porn. Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And
Absolutely.
then obviously you've got the partner, so then obviously that's a different kind of release again, and it's not actually
You
and
get an
that's
exchange of energy. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a making of love too,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and that's a powerful topic for that could be another podcast in itself, couldn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I was just going to ask you another couple of questions and probably start to wrap things up. So, if there's a young male out there that's even my age, I'm only 29, you're 20, could be even be a male watching that's in their 40s and 50s. Could any male, we'll just generalize it to any male, not even a young male. If there's
Yeah.
any male out there watching this and they have come to the realization that, hang on, maybe they do have a problem with porn.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would be your advice to that male to start to overcome their, I guess, their porn addiction? Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
It's a good one. I think don't be afraid to talk about it or get help. Be first.
Good piece of advice.
Yeah. I think it's okay that it's a lot harder than a lot of people realize. But firstly, knock the shame off if you have any of that. So it's not your fault that you found porn. A lot of it preys on young men's curiosity and our human nature. So it's not your fault that you found it. It is your responsibility though to do something about it. So get rid of the shame because it's so normal, and the statistics are like anywhere between 75 and 90% of men are watching it. So it's you're nothing, you're not creepy or weird. Then start to do some research on it. Remove triggers would be the first step. I usually go through about 3 stages. So the first stage is kind of avoiding. I hate that word, avoid, but I think for the first week or 2 weeks, it can be so intense that we just need to work on really managing it. Looking at your validating beliefs, looking at your reaction sequence, looking at your triggers, looking at your urges, learning how to do that. And then we go into like, okay, well, there's some accountability set up. Maybe you've got a friend you can be accountable with, or a coach or a mentor. Look at if there's any sexual dysfunction, so you can kind of plan how long you want to go for. What do you classify as porn as well? Some people have different rules, like, maybe I would say remove any sort of content that's dopamine provoking unless it's a partner. And then even then just watch yourself on it, like watch your body. Are you opening their message with like this big burgeoning rage of dopamine? So just watch that. What's the third stage? Communication skills, so talking to more people about it, and then kind of moving into I think there's something I forgot there, but I'll come back to it if I need
That's
to.
all right.
Then moving into setting yourself up for success, integrating healthy sexual practices, whether that be masturbation or sex with another person, and looking at root causes as well. Like, what does porn give you? What do you need from porn? And so, I think covering those topics can be good. But I think as well, if you can find someone who's been through it, go talk to them. Or if you can find a mentor that you'd like to work with, go talk to them. I knew there was another one. Goal setting. You need to know who you want to become. So get really clear on who you want to become, but don't stop there. A lot of people stop there. Get clear on who you would become if you keep watching porn. So just quickly, there's a little test done where they tied springs to the end of the rat's tail, and they were starving rats. They put some cheese in front of it, and the rat pulled really, really hard to get to the cheese. And then they did the same experiment with the same rats. They took away the cheese, and then they put the smell of a cat behind them, and they pulled much harder than they would for just the cheese. So sometimes we need to use the power of fear to run from towards our goals as well. So get really clear on the man you want to become, and get really clear on the man you will become if you don't give up porn.
That's really powerful, bro. I actually saw your reel. You got a reel on your Instagram that
Yes.
where you said that analogy, and that's that gave me goosebumps. Yeah, real powerful. Yeah, that's good advice for anyone out there. Speaking of Instagram and stuff, where can people find you, brother? We'll put your links in the show notes, but where can people find you? If someone out there wants to contact you, it might be a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, where can they best?
Yeah,
where can they find you?
All of my details are on my Instagram, which is Carter_Russell_.
Yep.
I've got my link in bio there, which has my websites and my offerings. I take men through 6-week programs, and I also do group sessions as well, like group 6-week programs where we beat porn and become the man you want to be. It's called Quit Porn and Be Reborn, I call it.
Love it, mate.
Yeah. So that's where all my stuff is, and I'll be running a few masterclasses with different people about it, and starting to talk more about it a lot too. So,
well, there's a reason why we've come together then, mate. Sounds like you got an awesome journey ahead of you.
Yep, it's exciting.
So we'll put your link in bio down the show notes. People, reach out to Carter. He's a 20-year-old doing the great work. There's not many 20-year-olds doing it. We need more of you doing it. So join us. Let's go. It's time now. We can overcome porn. We can overcome self-sabotage, and we can become better. We just need to see that version of ourselves and strive to be that. And that's what Carter's done. And look at him now. Awesome, bro. Thanks for jumping on today, mate. That was awesome.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, this has been the Breaking Free podcast. Thank you for listening and watching wherever in the world you are. And we'll see you guys again really soon. Another awesome guest. Carter, thank you, mate, for sharing all of that today.
Thank you, Nathan. It's been great being on here.
Awesome. And we'll see you guys soon.